Hi guys, Vale here and welcome back to another Mobalytics video. This time we're going to be talking about how to play against the newest champion, Renata Glasc. So first off, what does this champion actually do? Well, Renata is a disruptive mage support capable of making teams implode with her incredibly unique ultimate. Renata's kit has a huge variety of utility in it, including shields, damage, and even the ability to potentially revive her or her allies. So what are the strengths and the weaknesses of Renata Glasc? Well, as we've mentioned already, Renata's kit has a ton of versatility in it. She's got damage, she's got shields, she's got buffs, revivals, crowd control, and even the potential to turn enemies on themselves. Renata is pretty adept in lane. With her strong basic abilities and passive, she trades very well in most lanes and is quite difficult to play against. Renata also pairs exceptionally well with allied champions who can abuse the buff she provides, as well as combining her Q with teammates' abilities like throwing someone into a Caitlyn trap. Renata's kit has the ability to completely win games by herself with just how much it offers, and the effectiveness of these potent abilities comes completely down to the player behind her. Despite all of these obvious strengths, Renata's basic abilities have quite hefty cooldowns early game, meaning there are plenty of windows to punish her. Renata also lacks mobility and is very squishy, so this allows her enemies to burst her down and take her out before she has a chance to be effective. Renata's kit is also incredibly unique, meaning her skill ceiling is very high and you can abuse players who are still learning her. So now let's take a closer look at Renata's kit and abilities so you can fully understand how she actually works. Renata's passive is called Leverage. Her basic attacks mark her enemies and deal bonus damage. Damage from Renata's allies consumes this mark, dealing additional damage. Renata's Q sends out a missile from her robotic arm that roots the first enemy it hits. She can reactivate this ability again to throw her enemy in a target direction, damaging enemies hit and stunning them if the thrown target is a champion. This feels a little bit similar to Swain's E, but you can throw them anywhere rather than just pulling them towards you. Be careful getting hit by this ability as it's her main form of CC. As long as you sit behind the minions, she's not going to be able to hit you with it. Renata's W is arguably her strongest ability. It has multiple benefits and uses and seems to be the most overloaded part of her kit. She grants her teammate or herself ramping attack speed and movement speed towards her enemies. If the ally gets a takedown on an enemy champion, this buff duration resets. This could be pretty huge, and if you can imagine combining it with Jinx's passive resets, it's going to be a lethal combo. The second part of this ability is arguably even stronger though. If the ally would die whilst it's active, their health is set back to full, but they begin burning to death over 3 seconds, a bit like a mini Chemtech Dragon Soul. If this ally kills a champion though, they actually stay alive permanently by cleansing this bleed out effect. Be extremely mindful of this ability and try to stall its timer. Renata can also self-rival this ability, so be very careful when you're diving her. Renata's E sends out Chemtech rockets that shield her teammates and damage and slow enemies they pass through. The rockets also apply these effects around her on spellcast and in an explosion at the max range. This is the ability that Renata maxes first, so it actually does pack a bit of a punch. This is also another ability with a ton of benefits. Try to get used to its range and avoid that extra damage if possible. Renata's ultimate is absolutely absurd. She sends out a cloud of chemicals that cause enemies to go berserk, increasing their attack speed and forcing them to basic attack anything around them. Berserk enemies prioritize attacking their own teammates, then neutral units like minions, then Renata's teammates, and then finally Renata Glasc herself. This is an absolutely game-changing ability with a similar width and length to that of a Nami ultimate. Be extremely careful standing near your teammates when this ability is up and try to avoid it at all costs. This ability is not as effective in the early game as it is in the late game, as the CC and berserk duration is far longer when it's max rank. If Renata uses this on your Fed Tryndamere on your team, he could end up genuinely one-shotting you. However, if you aren't near him and he gets hit, he could actually one-shot Renata's team instead. So at what points in the game is Renata at her best and when is she at her weakest? Well, Renata is definitely best in the team fighting stages of the game with just how much she offers in her kit. Be super careful when 5v5ing against her in the mid to late game as her abilities can be absolutely devastating. Renata is by far weakest in the early game just due to how punishable she is. Her cooldowns are super long and she's squishy in a mobile, meaning she's fairly easy to abuse. So how do we play against Renata Glasc throughout all stages of any game? Well, in the early game, Renata is by no means weak in lane. Her basic abilities bring so much to offer, meaning that she can win 2v2s fairly often. However, she is extremely punishable as the cooldowns are very long, and due to the nature of her immobility and squishiness, she's very easy to take out. Keep an eye out for when Renata buffs her teammate with her W. It's obvious to see, but they gain movement speed and attack speed and a potential revive, so stall this ability and fight when it's on cooldown. Renata's Q can catch you out and ruin your day in the lane phase. Stay behind minions and try to learn its skill shot range and its radius to avoid it. When this champion gets her ultimate, you're definitely going to need to respect her a bit more. If Renata or her teammate lands some CC on you, you won't be able to avoid this ability, and it could easily lose you the fights. However, if she misses it, this cooldown is very long early game, meaning you can easily retaliate straight away or even after a reset, and you should still have time to kill her before it's back up. In the mid game though, Renata really starts to come into effect. With a few ranks in her abilities, she can use them more often, and her crazy versatility in her kit will allow her to thrive in those early team fights and skirmishes. You're going to want to be very careful when you're contesting objectives in the mid game versus Renata. Her ultimate could be absolutely devastating in confined spaces, so if you're all stacked up in a dragon pit, you could easily just end up killing each other. Renata is far more impactful when she sticks with her allies, but she is very easy to catch and punish when she's alone. If she overextends her vision control, this is a great opportunity to take her out swiftly. You want to keep your eye out for Renata's W on her teammates and focus on playing around it. If she's used this recently on her teammates, they are a far bigger threat as they are buffed and can also play far more aggressive with less risk of being punished. This ability should be respected, especially in those big mid-game teamfights. In the late game, Renata is extremely impactful. She has an amazingly versatile kit, as we've mentioned several times throughout this guide, and it really comes into effect in those late game high stakes teamfights. Renata's cooldowns are now much lower due to maxing these abilities and having ability haste in her itemization too, meaning she can really abuse the strength and the potency of her kit at this stage in the game. It's all about playing around Renata's main abilities. The Revival W is very strong here and can allow her fed AD carry to run riot if left unchecked. As you should know by now, her ultimate is also insane in 5v5, so continue to avoid confined spaces and avoid it at all costs. As with the mid game, catching out and bursting down Renata before fights is easily the best case scenario. If you can prevent her from team fighting at this stage of the game, it's going to significantly increase your chances of winning. Finally, let's take a look at some itemization that can help better your chances when playing against Renata. First off, we recommend Serpent's Fang or Shadow Flame. These are both solid anti-shielding items to take, as Renata can shield her whole team often with her E. These choices are even better to take if she's with teammates who also have additional inbuilt or itemized shields. QSS or Mikhail's Blessing are also great to get out of Renata's ultimate, especially if you haven't taken Cleanse. You should definitely consider these if you're struggling to play against this ability. Even more so if Renata's teammates also have more CC. Playing against Renata is all about playing around her cooldowns. If you can stall out these major abilities with some extra movement items, it should allow you to turn around and retaliate. There's also the option to take some passive defensive items. When you get hit by Renata's ultimate, you won't be able to use your item actives like Azonya's, as you'll be CC'd. However, items that offer passive defensive capability are perfect, as they may keep you alive throughout this duration. Whether that's a Guardian Angel to get you back up afterwards, or a Frozen Heart to reduce your teammates' attack speed when they are furiously auto-attacking you, these items could definitely help you out. Additionally, due to Renata buffing her teammates' movement speed and attack speed with her W, these items may help against that too. That's going to bring us to the end of this Renata Glasc counterplay video. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you again soon. Take care.